signs, symptoms, and cures of the spiritual diseases of the heart. Like has been mentioned, that this is a translation and commentary of a original book that has been written in poetic form by Imam who was based in Mauritania. The translation, or part translation of, you can say, the first half of the book was done by Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, who is, I think, resident now in California. The other half of the translation, or the other half, is still only, I think, available in Arabic. This is the translation of the part of the poem that we are now on. And it's got two central themes in this. One is love of the world, and other is with regard to love of praise. In Arabic we say hubb ad-dunya. Hubb, like we mentioned before, the book started off in alphabetical order. So we started off with Ba, and now it's going on to Ha. And this is the first one with regard to it. And it's in Arabic, hubb dunya, love of this world. Now, dunya, we hear this all the time. Dunya, dunya, dunya. Now what does it mean to you? I've taken a picture and said, look, this is dunya. Is it an evil word? Is it a good word? Is it a bad word? You know, what does it mean to you? Inshallah, there's just a few of you today, so you can engage better, isn't it? Inshallah. Anybody? Dunya, the word. Okay. Okay, well, worldly. First things. You know, when we say dunya, what comes to your mind? You know, not necessarily the translation. Everyone knows the translation. But when somebody says, you know, dunya, and especially on Friday lectures, you probably hear it all the time. Dunya, dunya, you shouldn't have too much of dunya, etc., etc. So what conjures up into your mind, dunya?
Materialistic.
Materialism, okay. Yeah.
This life.
This life, okay. Anybody else?
Something physical, more.
Something physical, okay. So materialism, physical, and that's what's. Now, we know from dunya can be studied from different aspects. If you want to know more about the geography of the world, then we'll study geography. If you want to know more about the dunya, you know, an amazing, fascinating facts about dunya, amazing, subhanallah, you know, then you will understand it in that way. But primarily our concern is, like the brother said, materialism. Materia is Latin, meaning matter. Material. So materialism, something to study, you know, about matter. And matter, that's what the world is, isn't it? Matter. Everything in the world we just say is matter. Now, in Arabic, that's how we write it, dunya. And it's an Arabic word. And in Arabic, dal, noon, ya, and alif. And what's fascinating is this same dunya, the word dunya, is in so many different languages. In Persian, Dari, Pashto, Bengali, Punjabi, Urdu, Hindi, Kurdish, Nepali, Turkish, and even this one, which I can't even pronounce properly, North Caucasian languages, the two dots on top, and even Malay languages, Indonesian, and interestingly, according to Wikipedia, even Greek has something like dunya. Now literally in Arabic, dunya comes from the word dana. Dana, something that is near, like somebody said very beautifully. Actual Arabic word means here, now, near. And the opposite of dunya is akhirah. Akhirah comes later on. So dunya, now, akhirah, later on. That's the actual literal way from where dunya comes. And dunya is called dunya because we are in it, the now and the here. So that's why in Arabic we say dunya, and we mean where we are now. And we always say in opposite akhirah because it's coming later on. So dunya and the opposite akhirah. So the temporal world and earthly concerns and possessions as opposed to the eternal spiritual realm or the hereafter. So dunya and akhirah. Now if we look into the Quran and see what Quran says about dunya, this is an amazing ayah. This is one of the most amazing ayahs that Allah has captured beautifully in 5 stages, the entire summary of our life in this world, existence of our life, the phases of our life, the stages of our lives, what we go through in life. Beautifully amazing. I mean, this is why Quran is just only Allah could have authored it. In 5 beautiful stages which we will go through, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says dunya is 5 things. And then Allah gives a parable, a similar, that it is similar to, and then Allah says, like, look at the rain coming down, the vegetation growing, and the vegetation then maturing and ripening. And everybody is astounded at the beauty of nature, at the beauty of, when the rains have come on a barren land, like in the desert, because obviously Quran talks a lot about, the rain coming, the deserts blooming, is because in the desert, that's not something you see all the time. I suppose if the Quran was revealed in Manchester, it would talk, because it's raining all the time, it's nothing new. But this phenomenon is amazing in a desert. The rain coming and vegetation growing. And that vegetation ripening. Sorry, can I go in? Yeah, come in. And then the vegetation ripening. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that as you see, just take for example the flower. There's a plot of land that is barren, empty. Then the rain comes down, the flower starts to grow. It starts to bud, to bloom. And then it becomes a picturesque scene, beautiful. And so much so that a person wants to express his love for somebody, what does he do? He takes out that rose and gives it to that somebody. So this is it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that don't just look at it in this form. What happens after that? And this we see season after season. And those beautiful blooming gardens of the most exquisite of flowers, at the end of the season, they wither and die. And if we think of it, life is almost exactly like that. Allah mentions, if we look at it, this, I suppose you'd call it your blooming period. When everything is beautiful, everything is easy, invincible in nature, everything on top of the world feeling at this time. And then when you become a bit older, then what happens? Then you can't walk as good as you could walk. You can't sleep anymore, Like, and everything in the world, Allah mentioned this just for the world and the 5 stages of the world. But we look at it even in everything. Just take, for example, marriage. In the beginning, marriage is wonderful and beautiful, what we call the honeymoon period. And somebody said it so beautifully that in the beginning, when a person is married, then the fragrances change also. So first the fragrances are what? Coco Chanel and Millions and whatever else you use. And then as the marriage goes on, after a decade, then it's the smell of Vicks and the smell of ointment because the person can't sleep and he's always got a fever and all like that. So this is exactly how they see. Think of that garden, beautiful in the initial stages, and then ultimately everything in this world starts to wither and die. And this is our life. Now while that garden is still blooming, how do we make the most of it? That is what Allah says. There's only 2 conditions, there's only 2 outcomes then. Then in the hereafter, for those who didn't look after it and themselves, severe torment. And for those who did look after themselves, is forgiveness from Allah and His good pleasure. So this is the life of this world. Now what are these 5 things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions? See, Allah uses the word اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب, then lahu, then zina, then تفاخر بينكم, and وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد. So let's analyze this ayah again. The first Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is la'ib. The first, and some ulama have gone to see that these are like the phases of our life. When we are young, the only thing we really want, a child, what is it all one wants? Just to play a whole day. And the child will want to play whole day. So the first stage of our life, Allah has encapsulated beautifully in the word la'ib. So it's about playing sports, game, fun, jesting, mocking, that's the first stage. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, as we get a bit older, then it becomes lahu. How do we pass time? That's the main issue as we get older. Pastime. How do we pass time? And what can I do? I'm bored. My life is boring. Don't we hear that? And that's one stage of your life. I'm bored. What must I do? Why did you do that? Because I was bored. What else can I do? I'm bored. This comes about the second mantra in our life. Lahu. Now, some ulama have said there is a slight difference between la'ib and lahu as understood in Arabic. In that la'ib is that type of sport, amusement that has no real benefit. There's no end game to it. So a person like a child will just play with anything, and you ask, what is he doing? Is there anything you will gain from it at the end? Is there any objective you have? No, just play. And lahwa is more also game, but there is some sort of goal towards the end that you want to realize and recognize. So that's why some will translate it slightly differently. But that's the essence. So la'ib and then lahwa. As we get older, is this not true? What we then desire and aspire. So aspirations change, objectives change in life. So just from playing and from la'ib to lahwa and then to zina. And this may be the stage where most of you might find yourself. And it's about how I look, how I smell, how I walk, how my attitude is. And so it's about decoration, show. It's about being, ornaments. And this is that stage of life. The crazes, what's the latest fashions? You can translate it in that way also. What's the latest craze? What's the latest fashions? So that's the third stage we go through as human beings. And then, obviously, as we get older, then tafakhurun baynakum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned it beautifully as tafakhur. Fakhr as to vie with one another in pride, in glory, in boasting, etc. So this time it's about how many cars I have and what type of computer my specs are and what type of house I have and what type of etc. etc. So with with rivalry with regard to a person, what we term in Arabic as fakhr. Fakhr means pride, etc. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, as we get older and older, then we're worried about our legacy. What will we leave? And that's why as we get older, then, and this you will notice, that this becomes now what a person now becomes besotted with, accruing more and more and more of this world. And that's amazing, because as we're getting older, we're going closer to leaving this world. But hoarding mentality becomes even stronger. And we'll see as people get older, those who are a bit older, then that hoarding, you need to save, save, and hoard of wealth. And then obviously at the end is, what will I leave behind? I am now old, what is my legacy? And my legacy will be my children. So then at that stage of our life, this is what we normally then go into. So these are, Allah is describing them like stages, like phases which we go through. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that if we look at it in our life, when we describe dunya, then every time, at one point or the other, this is what's happening in the dunya, and in our personal dunya, and in our collective dunya. And then, like I mentioned, Allah uses the analogy of rain, that when the rain comes and the plants start to grow, and it becomes a beautiful scene, that's the person at his or her maximum capacity. He's maxed what he can do. And then, with every culmination, there's nothing left but going down. And that's where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that it then wills and dies. In the hadith, Nabi of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam has said very beautifully that what is our relationship? What is our relationship to this world? So he says that Mali wa dunya. What is my relation? What relationship do I have with this world? And then he said, I am in this world like a rider who halts in the shade of a tree for a short time, and after taking some rest, resumes his journey, leaving the tree behind. And that is the reality of this world. That we are here for like a traveler. We started this journey long before we were born. It comes in the hadith that, in fact, it comes in Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, where did we start? We started off when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us as a soul. And Allah talks about taking the pledge with أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِن بَنِي آدَمَ مِن ظُهُورِهِمْ. So our souls are millions of years, hundreds, thousands, millions probably of years old. And now it's in a different stage. So it was in what is called Alamul Arwah, the world of souls. That is where we were all. And Nabi of Allah says that those people we were with in that world are the people who we relate to in this world. Man ta'alafa, those people in that world who related to each other, when they come into this world, they actually relate to each other. That's why sometimes you think that, how is it that we have this affinity with this person? You can't explain it. It's not empirical evidence. Why? It should be that these two people should never be this together, if you look at all it in scientifically. But there's that natural affinity, what we call natural liking for somebody. And this maybe can be explained, like in the hadith of Nabi of Allah, that we were together in Alamul Arwah. That's why those souls which were together, they created and developed a bond of affinity there. And those people in that world who disliked each other, tanakara, وَمَنْ تَنَاكَرَ تَنَاكَرَ فِي الدُّنْيا. And those people who didn't find that bond in that world, they carried it out and came into this world. So anyway, in that world, and then obviously there is a world just before we came into this world. And that's the world in the womb of our mother. So that's the world. So the soul takes the journey from this place called Alamul Arwah, and the soul then at 4 months, when a person is 4 months old in the womb, Allah sends the angel, and the angel comes down to blow the soul into this body. And then for the term of the pregnancy, that's another world we were in. And then finally, we are born into this world. So this is, if you can say, like the third stage of already a very, very long journey. And then how long we're going to stay in this world? Nabi of Allah has likened it like a rider who's ridden for so long and now comes to an oasis and now he's resting. So the animal is resting, drinking from the water, himself also is resting, he has accommodation for a few nights, etc. But the rider is not there, he's just in transit, in passing. He needs to do what he needs to do. They need to do what they need to do at this place, and the next always is what we are going to, where we are going, the destination. And that's why Nabi of Allah said that the true way that we should view this world is like we are here just for a little while, and the real destination is what we call the akhirah. Because remember, the journey doesn't stop. As we carry on from this world, then it's, Allah knows how many thousands, maybe thousands of years in the qabr, what is called alamul barzakh, the life hereafter, starting with from our time, the time we die, until the day of Qiyamah. Now think about those who have died. They have been in the graves, and their souls have been where they are for hundreds, some for thousands of years. And this will be our condition for the next stage of the journey. And then finally, on the day of Qiyamah, when the resurrection will take place, this is when the final stage of our journey will commence. And then the destination is either Jannah or Jahannam. So the soul is immortal, this body is just a vessel. This body is just a container, but the soul will remain true. And that's why we talk about, these are about with regard to the soul, that the diseases of the soul, because if we do not cure the diseases of the soul in this world, those diseases will carry on. The diseased soul will carry on in the hereafter. And that's the problem then. Anyway, so let us look more into this. What is it meant by the love of this world? So, Nabi of Allah alayhi salam likened it to like a rider. Isa alayhi salam also, once he mentioned that, look, this world, what is this world? The world is a bridge. So pass over it to the next world, but do not try to build on it. So it is a bridge we have to use. But a person who's passing through a bridge decides now to build extravagantly just at the bridge, doesn't make sense, because his focus or her focus is what's beyond the bridge. Another scholar has mentioned it, that see, this world is like an ocean. And we in this world are like ships traveling on this ocean. And the ship needs the water to go to its destination. If there's no water, the ship cannot move. So like that, we need the world to get to our destination. But the problem comes in when the water, instead of being under the ship, starts to come into the ship. Because then what happens is then the ship starts to drown. So that's that's how we should view the world. That we definitely need the world, and it's not something that it's a no-brainer. It's not something that everybody will know that we need the world. But the problem where the world is, when the world now comes to such an extent into our lives that it starts to drown us within it, and then we lose focus at where we are really going. So, and remember, love of this world is considered, when is it considered blameworthy? It's considered blameworthy when we, obviously, when it becomes a burden. So, you see, what we need to understand, that love of the world in itself, intrinsically, is not something that is bad. Because if we don't love the world, we will not work towards the world. And if we don't work towards the world, for example, we don't go out and work and get some food, what will happen will be a burden for others. And that can't be right. That we become burdened, we burden others for our own needs. So therefore, we need to engage with the world to the extent we do not become a burden for somebody else. So therefore, we need the education, we need to get a job, we need to get out and go to get our livelihood, etc. And that will also be, remember, categorized not only as something you can do, but rather something you should do. As I think you may have seen in the in the poem, the Sheikh has mentioned that there are 5 categories with regard to our relation with the world. So in some instances, we must use the world in the sense that it is wajib, it is necessary to engage and involve ourselves into the world to the extent that we do not burden others and instead of becoming something, of an asset, we become a liability. So that is necessary. We have to engage ourselves and involve ourselves in the world to that extent. And then obviously something that is okay, mandoob, what we say, mandoob meaning that it is not wajib, not necessary, but it is to the extent that if we go ahead, then it is something that is good. So for example, let's take one example. is that I must earn enough that I do not become a burden for somebody else. And another example is that I earn more so that I can help others also. So that would be the category of mandub. And the third category is what we call mubah, meaning that it's neither blameworthy nor is it praiseworthy. Okay, and that's where we go indulge into the world to an extent that we're not being a burden to anybody, we're not harming anybody, neither are we benefiting anybody. So it's just in the category of what we call mubah. And then involvement and engagement in the world in the fourth category is where it is makruh, where instead, and this is again the probability of harm and benefit, the benefit and risk analysis. So where we are more harm than benefit, but not to the extent that it is extreme harm, then that is called makruh. And the fifth category is called haram, to engage in the world to an extent that we are posing a risk to our akhirah, and we are posing such a destructive risk to our akhirah, to our fellow creation, and that is the category of haram. So these are the 5 categories, and these 5 categories are always in Sharia. You all know them: wajib, mandub, mubah, makruh, and haram. So similarly, like I mentioned, that haram category is when it prevents us from attaining the best of the hereafter. Now, another way of looking at this world, a lot of times you will hear people will say that, just generalizing and say everything to do with this world is bad, and the world itself is just evil, and it's not good, etc. But this is a very good point that the Sheikh brings up, that look, in itself, the world is not something that is bad. Why? Because do not curse the world. For Allah created the world, and the world is a means of reaching knowledge of Allah. Could we ever have recognized Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without seeing the creation? And what is the creation? Is the world. When sitting on that bench and looking out into the world, that is how we come to recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, and He has subjugated for you what is in the heavens and what is on the earth, all of it from Him. Indeed, therein are sure signs for a people who reflect. So pondering over the world, the creation of the world, the beauty of the world, how Allah manifests His power in the functions of the world, this can only be possible with the world being there. And so the world as a tool to recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As somebody has said very beautifully, that our life is a journey from where? From creation to creator. So how we look and observe the creation with the intention of using as a tool and implement for us recognizing the creator. Because in everything in the creation, like a poet has very beautifully said, وَفِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ آيَةٌ تَدُلُّ عَلَى أَنَّهُ الْوَاحِدُ. That in everything I see, Ya Allah, everything I see around me, everything just points to one fact to me, that, oh Allah, you are the supreme authority, you are the supreme being. How many of the people, how many of the events that take place, and when I ponder, really look at it, then it's just that, oh Allah, it points towards your existence, it points towards your might and authority and power. So the world, remember, is the greatest sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, as long as we use the world in a just and conscientious way, and obviously the world is not something that we should malign and curse. Now, one thing very interesting is about balance and moderation. And this is a central theme in Islam. And this is a beautiful story that I have put out here. It says that once Anas radiallahu anhu, he mentions that 3 people came to the house of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They came to the wife and they asked her, about the ibadah of the Prophet. What is the ibadah of the Prophet? What worship does he do? And they came thinking that, they're going to tell us that the Prophet, for example, never slept at night and was always reading Quran and remembering Allah, etc., etc. And he always fasted and never ate, and he always did this, that, and the other. So when they came to the Prophet's wives expecting this, that he's going to say definitely something like that. He's going to show himself as they're going to say, he is like so rigid in his ibadah, etc., etc. The Prophet's wives came with very simple answers. That the Prophet came, when he came to our house, like Aisha radiallahu anha would say, that the Prophet, after performing Isha Salah, would come to if he was at my house, because he had many wives, when it was his turn to come to my house, he'd come and he'd inquire, talk to me, and would joke with me. And there was a very beautiful story that they mentioned. And we'd talk, like husband and wife talk at night about the day, how the day went about, and I saw this and I did this and I met so and so, etc. Just normal, just absolutely normal things, mundane things he talked about. And then when he became tired, he went off to sleep, And then yes, what he did was he woke up for tahajjud when half or 1/3 of the night still remained, and he woke up and he prayed in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these Sahaba were surprised, really, the Prophet doing such mundane actions that everybody does, goes home and talk to their wives and they eat and they sleep and they do normal things like this. Then they thought, no, it must be because, the Prophet's already guaranteed that he's going to be forgiven all his sins, whatever was previous and whatever is to come also. So he doesn't really need to do what this. So therefore they said, they said that, look, the Prophet is a person that is forgiven, we don't have that guarantee. And this is what their mentality was. And sometimes this mentality comes about in our time also. So one of them said, I will pray all night, I'll never sleep. All night I will just use it to pray. The other said, I will fast and never break my fast. The third one said, I will withdraw from women and never marry. Anyway, they said this, and they took oaths that this is what we're going to do. It so happened this came about, and the Prophet was informed about this. And when he was informed, he called these three people, and he became angry. It's not mentioned here, but in another hadith it mentions that he actually became quite angry at these people. And he said to them, by Allah, I am the one among you with the most fear and awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is nobody who has more taqwa, who has more consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than me. But look at me. I fast sometimes and sometimes I don't fast. I pray sometimes and sometimes I sleep. I marry women also. And then he said this very beautifully. Remember? فَمَنْ رَغِبَ عَنْ سُنَّتِي فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. This is my way. A way of balance, a way of moderation, and a way in which we recognize as human beings that we are multifaceted. We are not just homogeneous, just one way, one method. No, but rather we are different needs, rights, and responsibilities, and we need to. And that's the difficulty, like we will see in the next story. Remember, in this world we have rights, we have responsibilities. And this is another beautiful story, and I like mentioning this story because it shows the beauty of Islam, this story, and it shows that what we ask for every time in Salah of Ihdina as-Sirat al-Mustaqim, oh Allah, guide us to that straight path. And this story typifies and encapsulates beautifully the essence of what is meant by Sirat al-Mustaqim. So anyway, we know that when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam went from Makkah and he went to Medina, then the Muhajirin didn't have any houses, they didn't have any accommodation, etc. So what he did, and this is a beautiful sunnah of the Prophet, is that he created muwakhat. Muwakhat means brotherhood. So he made this person that you come, one from the Muhajir, one from the Ansar, people of Medina, people of Makkah, and you two are like brothers and you must stay like brothers. And actually you would stay like brothers and treat each other. So Salman and Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, Allah's Nabi had partnered them together and said that you will be together. So Salman used to pay a visit to Abu Darda radiallahu anhu's house. One day he found his wife, Darda. She was dressed in shabby clothes, and he asked her, that, "Oh, Darda, why is it that you are like this? Why are you dressed just so, shabbily?" So she replied, "What's the point? What's the point? Abu Darda he's not interested in the luxuries of the world. In other words, he's not interested in any, intimate relations. So what's the point of dressing up?" Basically, that's what she said. He observed this, but he stayed silent. Then it came time to eat. Okay, a meal was brought forward, and they were sitting down to eat. Salman said to Abu Darda, "Oh, Abu Darda, are you not going to eat?" He said, "No, I'm fasting." So Salman said, No. Until you do not eat, I will not eat." So he had to, it was a nafil fast obviously. So he broke the fast and he started to eat with Salman. Then it came time to sleep. Salman, Abu Darda radiallahu anhu showed Salman that, "Salman, you will be sleeping here, I'll be sleeping there. Okay, now carry on. It's time to sleep, go and sleep." So Salman went to his place to sleep, and he noticed that Abu Darda is not coming to his place to sleep. So he said to Abu Darda, "Are you not going to?" He said, "No, I don't sleep. I just go on my musalla now. It's time for my prayers." So again Salman radiallahu anhu said to Abu Darda, No, you must come. And it's time now for sleeping, you must sleep. So he forced him to lie down and sleep. So he forced him to lie down and sleep. And so when Abu Darda radiallahu anhu thought that Salman had fallen to sleep, he'd get up. And Salman was awake still, said, No, still sleep. Every time after half an hour or so, he'd get up and want to go and pray Salah. He said, "No, relax, come. And then finally, when it was about the time of Tahajjud, about 1/3 of the night left, then he said, "Now let's both get up, let's just make wudu, and we will both offer Tahajjud Salah." So that's what he did. And then these three incidents occurred. And then Salman explained to him why he was doing this with regard. So he said very beautifully, and this is one of the most beautiful ways of, showing the beauty of Islam. He said to him, "Inna li rabbika alayka haqq." Oh, Abu Darda, understand that yes, you have a duty to your Rabb. Nobody is denying you that. Nobody is saying that you have no right, no responsibility towards Allah and duty towards Allah. And yes, the duty is paramount, first and foremost. But you also have a duty to your body. وَإِنَّ لِنَفْسِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ. If you will not eat, you are slacking in your duty to your body. If you will keep on fasting, this is against your right and the responsibility of your body over yourself. Similarly, if you will not sleep, then this is slacking in the right and the duty of yourself to your own body. وَإِنَّ لِنَفْسِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ. And وَإِنَّ لِأَهْلِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٍّ. You are married, Abu Darda, and your wife has a right over you, your family have a right over you, your children have a right over you. They also need some time with you. They also need, that their rights also be fulfilled. And then he said beautifully that the essence of deen is إِعْطَاءُ كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ فَأَعْطِ كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ. That you should give everyone his due. So this is the balance, this is the equilibrium, this is the i'tidal of deen. That we have responsibilities, for our educational needs. Yes, we should go ahead and fulfill them as best as we can, but not at the cost of another need or necessity or duty. We have a duty to our family, we have a duty to our parents, and this is something I hear quite a bit, that I have a duty to my mom, for example, and this youngsters have this a lot, and I believe, what Islam says about mom and the rights of the parents, etc., etc. But my mom is saying, "Now come on, let's go to Pakistan, and you guys must get married there." And I don't want to get married there. And this is so common, my dear friends. That's why I'm mentioning it. So now what? And then, unfortunately, and I will say it very candidly, then emotional blackmail is used. You won't go, I'm your mother, I'm going to curse you, and I'll make dua against you, and you'll never get a happy life. You know? And this is where we need to know that ta'deel. So yes, our parents do have right, but they don't have the right to force us to do something we don't want. Similarly, when you get married, and now the competing rights, this is always there. The mill deal, you know, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law. That comes again and again. Now what do we do? And then the son is in the middle, you know, and he's torn between, what does he do? On the one hand, the mom cannot let go because she was with him all his life. And now he's got a new woman in his life, his wife. Very rightfully so. Now what to do? You know, who to please, how? The poor person is torn in between. Now this is where this hadith makes absolute sense. That yes, oh mother, you have a right over me, and I will do my best to fulfill it, but not at the cost of infringing the right of my wife. And similarly, oh wife, I will fulfill your right. It is my duty to do so, but not at the cost of causing hatred with my own mother. You know, where do we get that ta'deel? And this is just where this beautiful hadith and this golden words of the last is how to give each person who has a right over us their due right, without infringing on the rights of the others. So anyway, Abu Darda went to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and he repeated the whole story, and Nabi of Allah himself said what Salman has done is 100% true. So let us just go very quickly over the last. So what is the criteria with regard to this hubbud dunya? So remember, the love of the world is praised or blamed based on what good or harm it brings to a person. If it brings greediness, arrogance, etc., then it will be blameworthy. If it brings spiritual elevation and healing, it will be praiseworthy. So, necessities of living on earth, food, housing, shelter, and the like, is not considered worldly per se. Wealth and position, if it will benefit the needy, why not? The more the wealth, the higher, but remember, the more the wealth, then the higher the probability one will become too preoccupied with it, and therefore it will now again infringe the rights of our duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then it will make us, you know, vulnerable to the attacks of ostentation, etc. Right. This was something, we'll just go very quickly, about praise, because this had come as part of this also. Now, with regard to praise, everybody likes to be praised for the good they do, and that is a need that we do. So it's not wrong to feel, you know, that somebody needs to praise you. But what is obviously is not flattery. Flattery and appreciation, there's a difference. You know, appreciation, yes, we appreciate people, we praise them for that, etc. You know, but we don't flatter them, because like Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, throw dirt on the faces of those who flatter others. But those who are thankful and appreciate other people, then this is about shukr, and that is fine. So what is blameworthy with regard to praise is being disingenuous. You know, a person is so disingenuous with praise. And also the worst, even worse than that, is a person who likes to get praise for something the person didn't even do themselves. So anyway, very briefly, these are the treatment of the love of this world, and this is a quality that we need to strive for, the quality of zuhd. Okay? And like Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah has said, that remember, that again, that balance with it. And see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end tells us that what is with you will be exhausted. The sum total of what we get in this world will one day will be exhausted. And what will remain for us forever and ever in this immortal soul and the journey that is never ending for us is our good deeds. So therefore give preference to that which will remain forever over something that is fleeting and temporary. And Nabi of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam had said at the end of it all, what is the dunya in relation to the akhirah? So all the treasures of the world, all the beauty, the glitz and the glamour of this world towards the akhirah, Nabi of Allah has said that, look, go to the ocean, dip your finger in there, see how much water comes out from your finger, and then compare it to the whole of the ocean. That's the likeness of this world with the hereafter. Jazakumullah khairan for listening. Sorry I went over time. But are there any questions that anybody needs to ask? If there are any questions, then I'll be here for a few more minutes, inshallah you can ask me. And if you need to go, you can go. Jazakumullah. here.